Burgoyne. So good at that. Dashes away. He's a great user. 3 bounces. Could have gone all the way. Went to Bruce. Bruce is marked. Bruce to set the G alight. Oh, he's got a little pulley in the ball there. And he misses a goal that he would normally kick. 5-6 the Hawks from set shots.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. My name is Bonz. Joining me today we have Vonn.
Hello.
And Milky.
Hello.
Now we are coming off one of the best wins I've ever seen. A fantastic, spellbinding, heart-stopping 4-point win over the Hawthorn Hawks, who just couldn't kick straight to save themselves, and that just made it even better. Milky, what are your thoughts on the game?
My heart was in my mouth pretty much the entire time. It was great to see us come out with a lot of heart at the start, which was, good considering of how that, final went last year, but let's move on from that. But, it was good to see us come out with some intent at the start and, play really well. We held them back in that middle section when they really started to come back at us, and to finish it off at the end was outstanding.
Vonn, what are your thoughts on the game?
Oh my god, that game was such a confusing and annoying game. I really enjoyed it in the first quarter. It was so heartening to actually see us come out and get a bit rough, get a bit physical. It was really, really great to see us just pressure and tackle and just do everything we couldn't do in the grand final. And in a way, it was just very bittersweet, but it was also very frustrating to see us completely go into a shell in the second and third quarters. I find it very funny that, obviously only one kick really would have been the difference between a loss and a win, and in games like that, it's so easy to just overlook the negatives. And for me, I thought that there were still some problems, Pike didn't really play that good a game. He looked absolutely cooked. I think last week we were just praising him, but this week, his work around the ground against Segler, it was just awful. Segler was the third highest fantasy points footballer for Hawthorn, and he was a ruckman. Anyway, that just pissed me off. I don't know. I think I would like to rest Pike this week. But he didn't really have a good game, but I guess we didn't really need him anyway.
It's only Carlton.
Yeah, exactly. It is only Carlton. So I don't know, Lloyd a few times was a little bit shaky. I felt like individually, Laidler, Shaw, there were some plays where it was a little bit questionable, and it was really great of our midfield to actually go back and provide support. It was very heartening to see Jack, Hannahs, Parker running it out, and that's something we haven't seen this year. Still lots of work to be done, but very happy to come away with that. And shout out to Gunston to Post, because that username is relevant once more.
That's a great shout out indeed to Gunston the Post. On top of this, I really do want to actually point out a couple of fantastic performances over the weekend. Sam Reid has really been picking it up in recent times, but his performance on the weekend was superb. He was setting up goals, kicked a couple of goals himself, took some fantastic marks both forward line and in defence, and provided a bit of a chain in the midfield. Also,
shanked one in front of goal though.
He did shank a bad one, but it's not a Sam Reid game without a mistake or two in there. The other performance I do really want to give a lot of credit to was Adam Goodes on the weekend. Really, it's funny, we all wrote him off at the start of the year, but that seems to happen every year to Goodes. He never starts off the year well, but it looks like he seems to be warming up at the moment. He took a couple of great marks on the weekend, a few contested marks, and one that should have been, there was a weird free kick against him for throwing the opponent out of play. But his disposal efficiency, whilst it wasn't up there, he was genuinely trying to look forward to the play and trying to set up goals. I think he was in 6 or 7 goal-scoring chains on the weekend, which is a really good performance. Obviously, Hanbury was amazing yet again. He's been consistent all year. Jared McVeigh's last quarter was superb. His last 5 minutes were incredible. Helped set up, kicked 2 goals himself and helped set up the final one to Parker, who most players, when they seem to get a girlfriend or a new wag, seem to drop off in performance a little. But Vonn, thank you very much. You're not keeping him up too late at night, so you're doing your job. You're doing your job. Well done. No, look, in all, it was a great performance. Ted Richards as well and Heath Grundy, they had a fantastic game in defence. And I do want to have a very good laugh at Bruce. How many goals was it he kicked in the end? Straight, but he still can't kick him under pressure.
Oh, it's actually... Oh, it's funny. Have you guys actually watched the Clarkson presser? Because he actually, like... There were no tears, but he was pretty much crying. Like, he was complaining about the bad kicking. He was acting as though, Hawthorn just threw away the game. And I can kind of maybe see where he's coming from. But to actually say that as a premiership coach is just very poor form and not something I would expect. I think he just needs to get a punching bag because he's just... Yeah, his presser was shocking. But
wait. When you say he needs to get a punching bag, couldn't he just use another civilian on the street?
Or a wall.
Yeah, but I was thinking one that doesn't result in rule changes that requires players to jump on a bus 100 metres from the ground, because that is the most knee-jerk reaction I've seen from the AFL for a while. I also want to, back to the game, I really think that Richards played really well as the third man up, especially in the first quarter when we were absolutely dominating. He was able to read the ball and cut off a lot of their kicks. I also forgot to do one little shout out. Shout out to Rioli. BT was absolutely nauseating to listen to. So for him to fumble in the last 10 seconds or so, that was probably... His one fumble is worth about 10 fumbles. That's pretty much what I think.
Commentating in that game was the most biased thing I think I've ever seen in my life. It was deplorable, and I'm really annoyed that Channel 7 got to call that game because those commentators on Channel 7 are absolutely deplorable.
Well, I was live at the game, and some Hawks fans celebrated every goal as if they won the grand final all over again, but hearing it on replay, you guys were right. Like, that was some incredibly biased commentary, and I'm surprised that Twitter didn't pick up on it as well. Like, a lot of the time when you have biased commentary, like, let's say it's Collingwood against Geelong and they're fapping all over Collingwood, you get a lot of tweets coming in regards to the match saying, like, come on, commentators, you're going to talk about Geelong or something. But that didn't happen again on the weekend. And I implore everyone who listens to this podcast, next time we're getting a game like this, start putting the pressure on Channel 7. Start tweeting them right on their Facebook walls. We want some more Swans talk that isn't about the Collar or Buddy Franklin.
Or the academies.
Yeah, that being said, if Buddy has a quiet game, the commentators don't really know who else to talk about. I guess they do have Leroy Jetta, but that's really about it.
Actually, just on the tweets, I have a tweet from Titus O'Reilly. He actually did say, I wonder how much money the Channel 7 commentary team have riding on the Hawks. Sounds like a bit.
There we go. More pressure. We need more of this. Come on, guys. Get our act together. Let's start really attacking the Channel 7 commentators week in and week out. You never know. They may get Leroy's name correct for once.
Next week it'll be all about Malthouse as well. Won't mention us. We could be 60 points up at half-time. And,
look,
Malthouse,
we don't need to talk about the game this week. We've already got it won. I don't care if McVeigh gets suspended for that hit, which I think he's going to get off about. But look, there's no need to worry about. We can play our reserve side and we'll still win by 60 points.
I know you're trolling, but it's very hard to actually take it as a troll because you actually could probably play your reserve side. That's how Carlton are travelling. Thank you to the AFL for putting them on every single Friday night ever because that's exactly what I want to do, watch a team fumble basic disposals. So, honestly, Carlton have just been so appalling that I honestly would not be against resting some players if they have niggles. Buddy, for one of them.
Pike as
on
well.
your Friday nights, it's always best to watch a comedy anyway. You don't want to have a serious night after a week of studying and...
I guess if you say, you know what they say, if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah.
And I think a few Carlton supporters are crying, but...
Look, that being said, if any Carlton fans are listening to this podcast, I know you're the only team not to win in Australia this year, and that can be rather depressing. But do understand, you are the current New Zealand champion in the AFL. But we were the original New Zealand champion, and we're going to prove that this Friday at the SCG. It's not even going to be close.
There's only one player I think can actually put their hand up from Carlton and be happy with themselves, and that's Cade Simpson. He's like he's the only player who's just playing well and actually wants to be out there.
Jotta's been okay as well in patches. And by patches, I mean by like 2-minute patches. But still,
he's doing all right. But he's a bit old. He should. I personally believe he should have retired last year. Good on him for keep going, and he's still playing games and still doing pretty well. But I still think he should have retired last year.
I think the entire reason why Judd didn't retire last year is so he can have another game against Sydney and he can swap jumpers with fellow dual Brownlow medalist Adam Goodes. I know that's something I'd want to do. I'd love to swap jumpers with that sexy man, but I don't really think I've got the profile to quite get there. Judd's got it a little bit to some extent. He isn't an Australian of the year, but dual Brownlow medalists, they do have a little bit in common, I guess.
Oh, so just back onto this Hawthorn game. So I just want to talk about this game because
it was a great
something I want
game.
to ask you guys. Last week, I will put my hand up to being very pessimistic.
I tipped us. I'm awesome.
Yeah, but you always tip us. That doesn't count.
I tipped us.
Yeah, but you weren't on the podcast. That doesn't count either.
Hey, uni.
I put my hand up and I apologise firstly to Adam Goodes for doubting you. I'm very sorry. I know that Bonz already spoke about it, but I would just like to add that his class, especially that mark late where he marked amongst 3 Hawthorn forwards and then set up McVeigh, that's a level of composure I don't think anyone else on our team has. And last week I said that his class and his quality still shines through, and I stand by that statement. Another thing I really want to give props to, Lloyd being moved into the midfield. I thought he had for probably the last 10 minutes or so, I thought he had a fumbly game, which I already talked about, but when he actually moved into the midfield, he got it a lot more. He was so much more composed. He was very involved in the final few contests, and I want to give a lot of props to him for that. And also, one more thing I want to ask you guys, Rampy and Gunston. I was talking about that matchup heaps last week. Who do you guys think won?
If Gunston had kicked straight, he would have won the contest, but he didn't. Bad kicking's bad football. I thought Rampy's rebound out of defence was pretty good on the weekend. He didn't have too many clangers, 85% disposal efficiency, was involved in 3 scoring chains, laid a couple of good tackles, won a fair few one-on-one contests, including a great contested mark. I think Rampy won it.
I'd say neutral. Actually, I'd probably give it a slight edge to Rampy because of Gunston's constant postings. But Rampy also went at, I think it was like 85% by foot.
Yeah, 85%.
Week, which is outstanding at the best of times. And I wouldn't say Rampy's usually one of our best users by foot, I wouldn't say. Particularly sometimes he always has one of those back circle clanger moments. It's just a classic Rampy, I guess. So I think Rampy had a really good game. Gunston was a bit off, so I'd give the chocolates to Rampy this time.
The other player I do want to actually talk about on the weekend, who I think had his best game for the year, not only doing a lot of niggling around the ground, and I've never seen a player play for the Swans piss off an entire side like that since Jared Crouch, but Ben McGlynn, hard at the ball, kicked a couple of goals, got an assist, 87% disposal efficiency on the weekend. He had a really, really good game, and I know, Vonn, you would have been pretty torn because I know you're official with Luke and everything now, but McBabe is really starting to pick it up with another gear or two.
You know what? I actually thought he had a good game for about 2 or 3 quarters. 2 quarters, and then I didn't notice him that much. Like, first quarter, he was very in the action. He definitely got the better of Mitchell, in my opinion, but I know he was moved off Mitchell in the 4th quarter, but even in the 2nd to 3rd, I thought that Mitchell was starting to get on top of him. So, yeah, a bit mixed about him, but as you say, I am official with Luke now, and I don't want I don't want any sibling rival. Not siblings, sorry. I don't want any team rivalry.
McGlynn really set the tone early with the physicality on Mitchell. And when Mitchell wasn't in the game, we were basically dominating. The first and fourth quarters, when Mitchell was on him in the Mitchell was on him in the fourth, and McGlynn was on him in the first. They're the quarters we won, and that really big moments where we had it. When no one was really on Mitchell of the Sam variety, that's when Hawthorn seemed to get on top.
Wasn't Mitchell on him in the fourth though?
Mitchell on the fourth.
Yeah, and that was actually it was a good game by Mitchell on the weekend. He did what he usually does for the first 3 quarters, and in the fourth quarter, he actually was pretty solid in the lockdown role, which really is showing some of the versatility that they wanted him to gain in the reserve. So, yeah, well done to the coaching staff on that decision.
Which is probably not good for Craig Bird, who was the only thing he had over Mitchell was slight goal kicking and tagging, and Mitchell's done 2 of those things in the past 2 weeks.
Where do you guys actually see Mitchell, Bird coming back into the squad? Can you see him making it back in this year if we don't have any injuries?
Not if we don't have any injuries.
Unless Towers and Cunningham have just complete drop-offs in form, because those two are currently swapping for that 21st, 22nd player, and we want to play a smaller, probably more of a defensive forward, then I think he would come in.
That being said, even with Towers and Cunningham, they're very different players to Bird, and they offer a lot more pace. Bird is very one pace.
Maybe not Towers.
Towers has pace, he just doesn't really use it.
If you're playing Towers, may as well play Hiscox.
How do you say that name without laughing?
It took a great concentration.
Look,
I can't wait till he starts getting regular games. I'm gonna be in Pun Central. No, but just on Bird, it's funny that you say. I actually think he's more valuable than Cunningham or Towers. Not as the sub though, so that's kind of where it is at for me. But he's an excellent depth player, but I just can't see anyone else in the team making way for him. Everyone who plays a similar role to him is doing a better job at the moment, and thank goodness for that. But I mean, Cunningham he didn't really have a super duper good game as the sub anyway, and Towers really hasn't either. So I wouldn't be against having Bird as a sub. I just wouldn't be against trying that, especially against a team like, say, Carlton. So I don't know, something else to think about maybe.
I'd like to bring in Naismith for the game against Carlton. Rest Pike, he looked, like you said earlier, a bit cooked, but I think they could just be general tiredness. So I'd like to see Naismith in again, give him a game against probably an actual one, particularly not against Richmond's Ruckman, whose name escapes me, who just destroyed him in round 23 last year.
It's going to be actually not very interesting this weekend against Carlton. It's going to be right boring. I can't honestly see the point in even previewing the match. I'm sure we're all going to predict us by over 60 points. There will be a few outs as we are going to rest quite a few players. Franklin looks like that ankle injury may actually be serious, so I don't expect him to play this weekend. We may use Goods as full forward, I guess, along with Tippett, and bring in Naismith for Pike, give him a rest. McVeigh will just take the 1 week suspension so we don't risk any more. Bring in Bird perhaps just for laughs, I guess. I can't see the point in it. We're just going to win, and I don't find the match very interesting. Do you guys have any real thoughts on the game?
I was actually just looking at who we play after Carlton, because the reserves don't have they have a bye. So whoever we rest
so both the seniors and the reserves have a bye this week.
Sorry?
Both the seniors and the reserves have a bye this week.
Yeah, but see, if we rest them, I just don't want to come back against, say, a finals hardened side and be caught out. So let's see who we play the week after.
We've got Gold Coast.
So we've got about 3 byes in a row.
We got Gold Coast, then we got North Melbourne.
North Melbourne in Sydney or down in Melbourne?
At Etihad. Should we just preview that game?
Skip the Gold Coast game.
North Melbourne are going to fold eventually anyway. It just seems pointless to talk about a team that's not going to exist in a few years.
Merge with Hawthorn and officially move to Tasmania.
Don't need to move much.
Look, that being said, there is one thing we can actually mention about Carlton, and it's probably some good news. This is going to be the last time we're actually going to have to really put up with Mick Malthouse. So it's been a constant thorn in our side for years. So that's a good thing. We should set him out with a nice 100-point defeat.
Anything less than, say, 60 points, and I think it'll be a loss, in my opinion.
I'm happy to accept.
Listeners out there, if you guys find yourself bored against Carlton, just think that we start the game as minus 60, so we have to win by over 60, and that should maybe make it interesting. That's what I'm going to be doing anyway.
Look,
it's interesting if you look back at our game against Carlton last year, actually. I'm fairly certain we won the first quarter by like 1 point, the second quarter by 1 point. So I think it was like we were up by 2 at halftime, and then we kicked like 70-0 in that third quarter, and then won the fourth quarter by like a point as well, which was really kind of funny at the time, but we still haven't put them away. Yes, we won that game by I think it was like 73 points, but for 3 quarters there it was close.
Only because the Swans didn't come out of... Anyway.
Look, that being said, what are you guys' ins and outs for this week? Who do you rest?
I don't know, Milky, you go first. I need to think about it.
My outs would be Pike. I'd rest Pike, definitely. Rowan looked like he had something going on with his leg. If he's not 100%, I'd consider resting him as well. And since podcast regular Sir Swans isn't here, I would get rid of Shaw.
Even though Shaw had a crucial...
Shaw had a much better game, and I think he'll still stay in. That was just a joke. So I'd take out Pike and potentially Rowan. Maybe McVeigh, if he does end up getting suspended. I'd keep Franklin in because I think we can play him into form this week. My ins would be Naismith and maybe Hewlett, maybe Jones to come in for Rowan. So we just give them a try and start Cunningham.
Okay. Vonn, do you want me to go next? Or?
No, I'm good. I'm still just very torn between playing the best team available and just keeping match fitness up, keeping momentum, all of that jazz. And I'm torn between that and also actually thinking about the year as like a marathon. So I do see the point in resting Niggles, especially if it's to someone like Buddy. So I wouldn't mind, if he is injured, I wouldn't mind Buddy out. Ruck out. Sorry, not Ruck out. Ruck isn't even a player. Pike out and Naismith in. Rowan, I don't think Longmire said anything about Rowan in his presser. I don't think it was mentioned, but I presume he'll be okay. So if he is fit, I think he should play. I don't think he had a very excellent game last week, so he can definitely find some form. Aside from that, there isn't really anything else. Maybe if any of the... Maybe play Goods as sub, give him a bit of a rest. I don't know. I'm just not really sure what philosophy the team's going to take. If they rest players, then there'll be 3 or 4 outs. If they keep the same team, then, there won't be any changes barring McVeigh.
Yeah, I just got a yawn. I just can't even get excited about this game. This
is going to come back and bite us. You know what? Every single time on the podcast, we have been somewhat smart-arsey about a game. We have just been beaten.
Look, I'm 100% confident that we're going to win this week.
How confident? Would you bet your mod chip over this?
Yes.
If Carlton win, you will make me mod instead of you. You will step down and let me take over.
Agreed. I'll take that. There's no chance we're losing.
Oh man, this could not end well.
Hashtag make fun mod.
It's a thing.
Look, that being said, for this week, I think we're going to rest Pike. I agree with Milky. Looks like he needs a bit of a rest. He's been good so far this year, but we can't expect him to take 80% of the ruck load. I think we're obviously going to rest out a few others. McVeigh will be suspended probably because they can, and it's only Carlton. think we may also rest Franklin just due to injury. I'm expecting Luke Parker to be out. Vonn's going to give him some serious chafing after their date on Thursday night, and he won't be able to get up. Don't need to worry about it this week. You guys have a lovely night out. It is only Carlton. Into the side for Parker, I see Robinson coming in. He's been playing well in the reserves, according to reports recently, and I wouldn't mind seeing how he steps up at AFL level. Naismith in for Pike because obviously Ruckman for Ruckman, and Derricks isn't basically flying at the moment, which is quite a shame. I would have liked to see Derricks kick up a couple of goals against Carlton. Look, that being said, apart from that, I can't really see too many players seriously coming in. Maybe Bird, as we were talking about earlier, come in and play as a sub. And if we do rest Franklin, we'll probably just keep Reid in a deep forward role and possibly bring in another midfielder like Hewlett. It should be a relatively easy win. I don't think we'll win by a huge margin, as we'll probably burst out to an early lead and take our foot off the pedal just to avoid injury. So I'm only expecting us to win by about 50 points.
Just want to quickly say something, actually. Brandon Jack, he's completely fallen off my radar. I wouldn't mind seeing him in, just because, it's been like a year since he's played or something? If Franklin comes out, let's just bring Brandon Jack in.
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind that.
Won't happen. Brandon Jack will probably never play senior footy, at least for the Swans, ever again, despite his brother being captain. He was supposed to be a small forward. Heaney has completely taken that role, and we've got more rotating mins in there anyway. Brandon Jack will not be at the Swans when his contract's up, after his contract's up.
So then what's the harm in seeing what he has to offer? I feel like Heaney's actual final position for me is a midfielder drifting into half forward. I don't feel like we have a small Cromer, and as much as I love McBabe, I feel like there are definitely some attributes to his game that maybe, say, a Brandon Jack could come in and replace.
I see what you mean, but I don't think Brandon Jack just has what it takes at AFL level.
Hasn't been bad in the reserves until he got injured recently, though.
It's also the NEFL. It's not the greatest reserves league.
He's still doing better than half a dozen other midfielders on our list.
I think he's just been passed, and I can't see Brandon Jack playing for Sydney again.
I think he will.
Have a serious injury crisis.
I can't see him not playing again.
I don't think he's as bad as you make out, personally. When he's played, he hasn't looked like he's been overwhelmed or anything, in my opinion. I just think there's just no place for him in the side, which is fair enough. But as I said, I don't think that Ben's role in the team is, completely cemented. If Brandon Jack can come in and do a better job, it would add another dimension.
I'll happily be wrong if he does come in and plays fantastic like that one game.
I doubt he'll come in, but it wouldn't hurt.
Even just any time in the year for resting players again or whatever, if he does come in and play a good game, I'll absolutely wear this. But I could see him potentially doing it Everett, moving to a lower club and playing well, because Everett's doing pretty well in Carlton, even though it's Carlton. Or at least he's not doing Jesse White at Collingwood. But if he goes to a St Kilda or even a Bulldogs or Melbourne and does well, then kudos to him. But
not necessarily. Membray hasn't done well at St Kilda this year. He's been okay. I think
anyone has done well at St Kilda this year.
Oh, Josh Briscoe's okay.
Yeah, he's played well.
When we play against St Kilda, it's going to be us against Bruce. No one else. But anyways, thank you for listening to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. My name is Bonz. Joining me today, I've had Milky.
Hello.
And
you
Vonn.
don't say hello when he's signing up.
Why not? I say good morning in the afternoon.
Have a good Friday night off this week. Should be a fairly relaxing night. Allow us to get rid of a bit of the heartburn that was built up from last weekend. Thanks, and yeah, have a good one.
See you later.